Welcome guys, this is Adobe Premiere Pro tutorial on the best layouts to optimize your workflow. My name is Shane Gentles and I've been editing on Premiere Pro for like about 10 years. So I'm going to show you the types of layouts that really worked for me when editing. So I'm going to go straight into it, explaining why I don't really like the default editing layout Adobe has here. Really, there's only one problem is having the project window at the bottom. The reason being is when you're editing, it's much more easier having your timeline as long as possible, especially when you're on a small computer, like a small laptop. Your timeline's already really small as well, and having your project window down here takes up quite a bit of real estate, especially when you're kind of going through projects and you could be back and forth from project window to your timeline. It takes up a lot of your time. That's kind of the real problem. Preferably if you're working on a 4K display or like a widescreen curved display, you have a bit more real estate. I find on a 1080 screen there's not much space for your timeline, and having a project window here just really makes it a bit more harder when you're actually editing. So I'm going to go into what my layout looks like, and I'll go walk you through it as I go along. I call it the CS 5.5 layout because that's the last time Adobe set this layout as default was in CS 5.5, and when they started getting into the Creative Cloud, they've stopped this kind of layout, which is basically just having your project window at the top left corner here. So I'm going to walk you right through it. I'm going to start from at the bottom corner here with my effects panel. This is probably the only panel that's actually by my timeline, and that's because I don't really like this anywhere else. There's already enough kind of tabs within my project window, within my source window. I could put it in my program window. However, when you apply the effect, you kind of want to see it in the program. So it still makes kind of sense here. And really, I only really use the effects mostly is when I need like a cross dissolve or like a cross fade. So it's not really a big deal. I can always make it really small here, and I still have a lot of timeline real estate. And again, it's much more easier just having your program window just up here, because if I'm just double clicking, let me go to the source, I see it straight here, and I can go back and forth instead of being at the bottom corner here and having a top. Because if you have your program window at the bottom and you want to see as much of your video, you're gonna naturally scroll up your timeline to see as much, which makes your viewer a bit smaller. But if it's at the top here, I can see as much of the video content I've created, but also I've got my nice source window. I can see my video quite big at the same time. It's just much more practical, I think, and it works for me really well. Next is the tool window. This tool window, I don't really use it that much, but I find it's not really useful for me now that I've learned shortcuts, and I'll do a video on shortcuts as well, which really takes up a lot of your time instead of going back and forth with your cursor, picking out your tools, whatever tools you want to work on. Now, however, there's only one time I actually really need to use my toolbar, and that's with graphics. And again, I'll go through the shortcuts with you in another video and explaining why this toolbar is actually useful when using graphics, especially in this layout that I have right here. Lastly is I have my meter level here. Usually it's down at the bottom. It's not a huge problem if it is at the bottom, but again, I want as much timeline real estate as possible. And it kind of just makes sense. You have your viewer here anyway. You might as well see your levels at the same time. Either one works, but it's just nice to see the video as well as seeing the audio levels at the same time in a relatively smaller window than having your viewer up here and then having your meter down at the bottom, kind of looking up and down. You can kind of see it at the same time. Now, why do I want my timeline as long as possible? Now, having your timeline as long as possible means that you don't have to keep on scrolling as much because it's already on a timeline already. Now, I can easily just kind of scroll in right here, edit what I kind of need, kind of scroll back out. I still got a lot of real estate to kind of still do some editing. But if you're really small, and it's really hard to really explain without it being small, but if you switch between like a really smaller timeline, you find it much more difficult. Even if you kind of go back, then it become a bit too small to deal with. I'm on max right now, and this is even not even tiny enough. If it was like really tiny, and it's hard to select, it's hard to edit, it's just a lot more easier just having a longer timeline. You don't need to expand as wide. You can just expand just a little bit, and you just need to edit as you go. Now there's going to be a couple of other medium kind of differences, customizations, depending on what I'm doing. So if I'm syncing, there's another layout I kind of have, but yes, Adobe does have a syncing layout right here, which is practically kind of the opposite of what I have right here, which I'm just like, why are you copying me? But again, if I have my layout here, I might as well just adjust it how I want. So basically, I like to have all my audio, all my video in my project window, and then I just drag all my audio that I have and put it at the bottom. I don't need my timeline as big for this moment, not really editing that much. I'm just kind of getting things in. And so, because I have all my footage here, I can drag down the footage I need. Let's just take out one for an example. And then I drag the audio for that specific clip. Hopefully, you know what audio it is. And then boom, it's all synced. Therefore,
go into the hoop. What's the fun in that?
This is my film, by the way, that I did. I released earlier this year, Got Game. You can definitely check it out on my channel. I'll probably put it in the link description. It's a cute little film. You should go check it out. Plug there. But yeah, syncing, that's probably the best layout. Honestly, it's much more easy than going back and forth between tabs and dragging, then going back in the tab, dragging. Just these little things just makes your workflow much more quicker. Lastly, I'm going to mention this other type of workflow. So yeah, when I finish with this, I just kind of drag it back in. Let me go back to doing editing. This is a rare type of occasion you would do this, but the double timeline workflow. I usually do this on our bigger projects. This really works really well. I don't really use it that often, but if I'm seeing myself editing between like two timelines, then I will have this two timeline workflow. For instance, if I end up doing this, it may be because I'm working on several scenes, and then I might work on that scene and take it into the main scene or the main film or main show episode and drag it in. I might do some adjustments, copy that, boom, drag it back in. Or if I'm working on multiple episodes within like one show, I might be switching between shows if I need to do some editing between that. Again, if you just find yourself editing between two timelines, it's best to just, let me just edit up here, blah, 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 and come back and go to this timeline, blah, blah, blah. A lot more easier to do it that way. There's so many different reasons why you probably need a double timeline. Those are just a couple of examples. Right, the next one is color correction. Now, I color grade. I love color grading. I have my Lumetri up here always, but I like to have it within my source window here, just because I like to do just a few adjustments. I might just even like, let me just make this a little bit more prettier and just kind of like adjust like the contrast here and just make it a little bit more appeasing. But if I want to color correct, let's just reset that. We don't want that, I know. I'll go into the color window. I love what Adobe has done with the color window. I practically don't adjust anything here. All what Adobe's done here is great. It's lovely. I like to have the waveform monitor here. I like to color grade by eye, but if I'm color correcting, I will use the waveform monitor just to start as a base. If I'm having a problem with white balance, I probably will bring up a vector scope. Generally don't find myself needing to use it that often, but it's there if you need it. And that's pretty much it. But those are kind of the workflows I use to help me optimize my workflow to the best it can be. There are a few other ones. You can use effects, audio and graphics. Comment in the below and let me know if you want to kind of go through a workflow and why you would use those ones. Effects, you probably use it for music videos if you're using a lot of effects there heavily. You also have the audio one if you're doing a lot of recording or any audio adjustments. If you don't really want to use Audition and you want to keep everything in Premiere Pro, I can go through that. Also the graphics panel as well, if you want doing a lot of graphics within ad or a lyric video, if you're doing it in Premiere, that'd probably be useful to you as well. I would adjust some of these layouts. I've seen some of these layouts, I would adjust them. I don't feel they're fully optimized if I was working with them. Just comment down below and I'll do a video on it. I will be doing a video on shortcuts for you guys. Honestly, once you learn shortcuts, you don't want to go back. It makes your editing much more faster, and if you're low on time, it's the best way to go. Thanks guys, make sure you like and subscribe. This is my first kind of tutorial, so the love will be lovely. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next video, and please check out Got Game as well. It's a really nice cute short film. And yeah, thanks guys, until next time, blessed peace.